We are live here on Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. My name is Tony Vicenda. I'm Chief Alchemist here at Plus One EXP, which is a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. Our hope and desire is to help amazing designers find great players who love their games, and amazing players find great designers whose games they can love. We do that in a lot of different ways, but the most fun way is just sitting down with those designers to play those games for the next Saturday nights, at least 3 Saturday nights. We have an option to expand to a fourth if the Doom clock doesn't count down quite fast enough. We are going to be playing Apocalypse Keys, which is a game coming very soon to Kickstarter. But I had a chance to play it earlier this year. I've been incredibly honored to watch it develop over the course of the last year by the creator Rae. Rae, why don't you tell people who you are, what you do, and tell us a little bit about Apocalypse Keys?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Rae Nedjadi. My pronouns are he, they. I'm super excited to be here. It's always such a pleasure. Tony, thank you so much. Yeah, so I like to make games. I am, the creative force behind Sword Queen Games, which is like currently mostly me. But I've had the good opportunity to collaborate with a lot of cool people. I've worked on games like but like buying Returning Home, Cozy Town, which is unlike all my other games. I apologize to everybody who picks up Cozy Town and expects more coziness. Apocalypse Keys is probably more in line with the games I like to make. Yeah, and speaking of Apocalypse Keys, so Apocalypse Keys started out as a game inspired by Hellboy and BPRD, especially the films and comics. And yeah, it's sort of like grown into this huge, like queer blockbuster kind of game. So basically, I want to like read out the copy because Libby did such a good job writing the copy. Like she just did an amazing job. So basically, unlock your heart or unlock the apocalypse. As an Omen class monster, you are the only thing capable of holding back the apocalypse, combat occult threats, and investigate supernatural phenomena alongside your team of supernatural agents working for the shadowy division. But in a world that shuns monsters like you, only your deepest, most heartfelt bonds can grant you the power to stop those who seek to unlock Doom's door. So basically, Apocalypse Keys is a game of mystery and big emotions, bigger monsters. So it's going to be a good time, I think, and we'll definitely get into it today.
Awesome. I'm very excited to play. Before we dive in, let's meet our other players. We've already had a comment from the chat about Josh's mustache looking great, so let's hop right over. Josh, why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do, where they can find you online?
Sure. Well, thank you for the mustache compliment. Hi, I'm Josh. I use he, him pronouns. I'm over on Twitter and itch and et cetera, usually at Ostrich Monkey, one word. It's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. Don't read too into it. I like playing and also writing and designing tabletop related things. So you can find a lot of my own stuff on itch. I've been lucky enough to demo some fun things here on the Plus One EXP channel in the past. Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to playing some more Apocalypse Keys. I've gotten to dabble in it, and it is a very, very cool game. So I think everybody is in for a treat.
Awesome. Well, I'm always glad to have you here with us. And then first time on the channel, but somebody who I'm very excited to have join us is Sheri. Sheri, same question. Why don't you tell people who you are, what you do, and where you can be found online if you want to be found?
Oh, sure. My name is Sheri Stewart. You can find me on Twitter at Auzumel, AUZUMEL. And essentially, I am one of the co-hosts for the Gauntlet podcast. But mostly I play games, whereas lots of other people design and, GM. I am the perpetual player, and I am the biggest fan of Rae's work. And when they asked me to be here, I was like, oh, yes, I will definitely be here because Apocalypse Keys is amazing. So, yes, very excited. I love my job as a player. I am so lucky to play so many good games.
Yeah, I mean, Sheri are downplaying what they've done for Apocalypse Keys, but Josh and Sheri have been like in almost all of my playtests for, I think, 2 years. No, I think every playtest for 2 years now for all the games, but also including Apocalypse Keys for sure. Josh was also a system developer and helped a lot in the final stretch of Apocalypse Keys, and has a very good mystery that you should check out when it comes out. It's very, very good.
I love stuff Josh writes, so I'm very excited about that as well.
It's very good. It's very, very good.
Awesome. So we use a few different tools here online. We've already talked about lines and veils in advance and kind of populated those. So rather than redoing that dialogue like we normally do, Rae, in just a second, I'm going to have you read those out, but you'll also notice that we'll use the X card, we'll use other safety tools as they come up. We've talked about all those in advance. We never want to fail to mention those conversations, though. So, and we'll talk to you guys about, you folks, about what those lines and veils you can expect to see are. Also, we use an open door policy here on Plus One EXP, which means if anybody who's on the stream needs to get up, move around, step away, turn off their camera, do normal human things for a minute, those are normal human things, and normal humans should do those. Weird humans should do those things also, too. If you need to do those things while you're watching, please do. Take care of yourself. But we will also, too. So, Rae, do you want to go through the lines and veils that we talked about in advance?
Yeah, absolutely. So we went over our lines and veils, and we have hard lines, meaning this will not show up in the game at all, for sexual assault, homophobia, transphobia, and fat phobia. And we have a veil, meaning this will happen off screen, or we won't go into too much detail, for real world fates as negative plot devices, violence against domesticated animals, and suicide. Of course, our lines and veils are a living document. We'll keep coming back to this as much as we need to. I'll keep checking in as well. And like Tony said, we have our X card in case we need to put in something. We're also using script change, which we've gone over. We can use pause to check in if we need to ask a question about something, add something to our lines and veils. We'll stop to take a break when we need to. We'll fast forward to the next scene or the next moment if we don't want to linger. And we can always rewind and retcon or change anything, because we're creative people. We can always come up with something new if it means for a better story everyone's happier with. So, yeah.
And
I also,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you wanted to do something. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I just also wanted to say I have a romance checklist. So, like, this is an opportunity for us to let us know if you're comfortable with your character engaging in any romancy things, right? So you can just like take note, in the checklist, and I will take note of that.
Cool.
But yeah.
We also, I was going to mention that we have this great Roll20 implementation up, and that was not an ironic great Roll20 implementation. Regulars on the stream. No, I'm not a huge VTT fan. I really like I'm
not a huge fan either. Yeah, Fred Hicks worked on it. No, it's true. Fred has like changed my mind about Roll20.
Yeah. And so a very, very good Roll20 implementation for the character sheets. In the initial playtest, there's a lot of cool moving parts that you can add into your character, and this made it really easy to centralize those, make sure the information is where you needed it, in a way that usually only a print will. So Fred did just a really killer job on that process, and the role feature is integrated into this character sheet, which is my favorite thing, rather than trying to figure out what to type in to roll a dice. So I'm very excited to use it, but we are using that also if you hear us mention it, or we may put things on there from time to time. You'll see it or you won't. But with that said, Rae, I'm going to just hand things over to you to take us into Apocalypse Keys.
Yeah, all right. So today we are playing or feeling out, exploring our mystery called The Oldest House, right? So I'm really excited about this one. I wrote this, I was inspired by video games like Control and Prey, and really just the kind of specific kind of supernatural horror folklore you can find only online, right? Which is pretty cool. So also, I just want to let people watching know that we have a content note about the oldest house mystery. We have amnesia, unreliable and fragile memory. There's some time loops involved in shenanigans. So I'm excited to get into it, but also take note, if those things are uncomfortable for you, it's also okay to not watch, right? So let's see. I think what I'd like to do before I describe the oldest house any further, I'd love everybody to meet our very awesome characters, right? We had fun making them off screen, and I think I want everyone to have the opportunity to introduce them. So how about we start with our mostly dead, not quite dead, Dread Archivist. So Sheri, could you tell us about your character, please?
The Dread Archivist, Eliza Corbin. By the way, she prefers that you always call her by her full title and name, since she is a creature or an agent now, and that is her title and her name. So anyway, she's a little formal and a little logical, very much before everything else. Eliza used to work for the agency as a human, as an archivist. And everything was going great until she got caught up in one of the particularly strange assignments that was going on, and she ended up not dying exactly. She managed to hold on to her life, mostly so that she could protect the archives, and in doing so, she became a shade. She essentially stood up to death and maintained her identity, and she was granted this power to continue on. She is, for all practical purposes, a human-formed sort of vapor of whatever the material is, the soul material. She has powers now of a necromancy, and she can also power machines with soul stuff, and get unusual outcomes from those. That is her strange power. She's still a dang fine librarian and archivist though as well, and has never given up those duties. When that unfortunate incident happened, and unfortunately she doesn't remember the circumstances. It's the one thing that she can't recall, and she can't find records for. Those have been hidden from her, and she knows it. But she did lose her assistant archivist, or almost lost him. She attempted to protect Vin, and so he trails behind her as an unspeaking sort of ghost companion who's always there. They can't really interact that much, but Vin is somewhat comforting, I think, is perhaps the best word for Dread Archivist. They are always there. And so are the cats that Eliza used to love and that Vin used to love. They both had cats of their own, and that was their main bonding thing. So there is this sort of parade of, an assistant archivist and a bunch of, litters of cats over the time that follow them. Now that's just who they are now. But their main thing is that they are sort of doomed. In order for death to allow Eliza to go on, he extracted some promises. Again, not so clear what those were, but some of it seems to be that she's supposed to kill death at some point. And maybe something about breaking down the barrier between life and death. So not sure. This is all hints, pieces, apocryphal bits that she's gathered about what has gone on. She's trying to figure it out. Once she gets all the information, she will be able to find a way out of this. She just knows it.
Right.
Exactly. And that's pretty much what she's going to do. Is there anything else you do want me to go over, moves and things like that? Or
No,
I think that'd be too much, right?
Yeah. No, but I think that's absolutely perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then next, Josh, if you could introduce your character, Nero, our hungry.
Of course. So I will be playing Nero, who is the Hungry playbook, and reading from the list of the hungry characteristics, because they're very well written. There's an endless hunger that ravages my body. I embody the menace and emptiness of the apocalypse. My power is intimate, transformative, and harrowing. My heart yearns to consume and be consumed. So Nero is a fragment manifestation, almost child of some ancient dream deity, that is over the countless years, perhaps even eons, fed on other dreams, nightmares, power, taking all of that within himself. And he still yearns for more. He is dangerous, arrogant, confident, if you couldn't tell, largely inspired by Sandman's The Corinthian, because I could not help myself. I think Nero sort of, under ideal circumstances, perhaps wouldn't be working with the division. I imagine there's some sort of power or something they have on him to get him to cooperate. And he also has an interesting connection with our last character who will be introduced probably shortly. But I am looking forward to giving in to my horrible base instincts and consuming things that I shouldn't, and for terrible stuff to happen to me and everyone around me.
Yeah, that sounds like the perfect human experience now that I think about it. Monster, but monster. But yeah, actually, so I want to briefly say that one of the things I love about Apocalypse Keys that happened by accident is that each of the playbooks are less of an archetype and they're more of like a narrative arc that's open to interpretation with a central emotional theme. And so when I first built the Hungry, it can easily be interpreted to be as like the vampire playbook, but it was honestly inspired by Doctor Strange from the What If cartoon series. Like I really just wanted to. I'm not going to spoil because it's a very good episode. So if you want to watch it, you should watch it. But I was so happy when Josh was like, I realized I can build the Corinthian with the Hungry. And I was like, oh, I feel like I've hit a milestone somehow. So each of the playbooks really like open up to different interpretations, which I really, really love. So No Shade has been the same. No Hungry has been the same. When I got to play test the Hungry, I played Dorian Gray. So that was super fun. Yeah. So, but last but not least, of course, Tony, tell us about The Fallen.
Yeah. So I am playing as hold on, I have to scroll over to read my entire name. The final sigh before the final closing of eyes, which is literally the sound itself is my actual name, but I just go by Finn. To do it, I am playing the Fallen. I'm a pale reflection of the glory I once was. I embody the hubris and volatility of the apocalypse. My power is faded and cracked and deceitful, and my heart yearns to worship and be worshipped. But I was the primordial god of dreams and thought, died and cried a set of tears as it died, and I am one of those tears. So I'm a semi kind of angelic being. There are others like me out there. We all have sound names that are connected to the death of that deity. And I lost track of what I was saying. I have wings made out of sound and light. I struggle to maintain kind of a human appearance and form most of the time. I oftentimes am not looking in the right direction, or not behaving in the way that a human being normally would. I don't get the meat space very well, still even after all these years. What else should I say? Yeah, that's who I am. My other gods and my siblings are trying to find me to force me to do things I don't want to do, or steal the spark of divinity that still lies in my heart. I also need to pick an impulse. Still, is one of the things that we talked about. I don't know if we want to do that now while we're introducing the character, or if we want to do it another time.
Oh yeah, let's talk about impulses. So basically, impulses, there are ways that you gain experience or ruin. That's a different thing. So you have an XP track, which gains you more playbook moves or division moves, special moves that are connected to division. But you also have a ruin track. Because as Omen class monsters, you are powerful monsters. This is a world of monsters. This is a world that is built for humans. And we try to pretend that monsters don't exist, but they are necessary and needed. But there is a specific type of powerful monsters called Omen class monsters, which is what you are. And you work for division in order to hold back the apocalypse, to stop the harbingers that are trying to have the apocalypse occur on their own terms. And so your ruin track marks you getting closer and closer to become a harbinger yourself. You'll become more powerful, gaining access to ruin moves. And so the cool thing about ruin moves is, unlike other moves, you don't have to roll. You just have to choose an option, decide how much ruin you're going to mark in exchange for you leaning into the harbinger, basically. And so Sheri joked about during character creation about how she wanted to play the character for 3 years, and I said characters don't last that long in Apocalypse Keys. Either characters become harbingers or they hold back the apocalypse. So it's one of those two things. But yeah, so one of the things that we're looking at is impulse. It's some options you can choose to like drive your character, something that you can try to fulfill during the session. So on your character sheet, you have options for what your impulses are. And so let's go to our dread archivist, Eliza Corbin, who I have to call by the full name and title. What did you choose for your impulse?
Sorry, the mute button was like, anyway. So
We can blame
It
it on one
turns-
of the ghost cats. That's okay.
Exactly. It was a ghost cat on my mouse pointer. So that was, so I chose, did I go too far in search of the truth? If yes, I can choose 1 XP or 1 rune. So since my character is in fact particularly logical and driven to find the truth.
Awesome, awesome. I will say, like, the different impulse choices, I wrote them in such a way that they align with the themes of the playbook, but they're also like leaning into your monstrosity or humanity, and there are different ways to interpret each one. So with that in mind, Josh, what did you choose for Nero?
I chose, did I surrender to the hunger within me at the worst possible moment?
So what I like about that is it tells me as the keeper that I should provide as many opportunities for Nero as possible to give into the hunger. So can't wait. Did we talk about what your character feeds on and what they leave behind? I'm trying to.
Not specifically, but I
Mhm.
can
Mhm.
mention that. So as the hungry, I feed on something, and I also leave behind remnants. So I feed on memory and dream, leaving behind troublesome shades of the subconscious that escape into the world.
Yeah, can't wait. What could possibly go wrong with those
Nothing.
escaped shades? Totally fine. Yeah. So with that, Tony, you have your options available to you as the Fallen.
Yeah, I put them up on the screen a second ago. I also dropped them in chat so chat could help me decide.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
I
Chat's been so
universally
great. Hello, chat.
I universally go on a first mentioned, first done basis, but the options were, did I bless, just so people can see a little bit of the variety, and since I haven't picked yet, did you bless the weak with your immeasurable glory of your presence? Did you taunt or seduce those who would seek to destroy you? Did you humiliate yourself for the intimacy you crave? Did you tell the truth when you shouldn't have, or did you betray someone you love? And Aaron King immediately jumped in and said, bad truth telling, and so we're going to select that one. Did I tell the truth when I shouldn't have?
Ooh, I will also tell chat. I wrote the Fallen for myself, so because I just love social characters. One of my favorite things to do in Blades in the Dark is like just play the most social character who's just there to flashback and talk their way out of everything. So, but yeah, so the Fallen has that in mind. Okay, very, very cool. I like that a lot. All right, so with that, I think we're ready to jump in. Yeah. So basically, the oldest house is normally a complexity 8 mystery, but I've dropped it to 6 so that we can fit it within our sessions of play. So just putting that out there so people know, in case they look back and think, why did it only take 6 ticks of the doomsday clock? Which brings me to the point of the doomsday clock. So in Apocalypse Keys, time is of the essence. You are trying to get to the ancient door of power, right, before the Harbinger does. So a Harbinger is behind the scenes, is part of this mystery. It is your job to figure out who or what the Harbinger is, who or what is the ancient door of power, because it can come in many forms, and what power they are trying to take for themselves so that they may ascend and come closer to bringing about the apocalypse that they so crave for. And yeah, with that in mind, we have a 6-tick clock. I will describe the message that all of you received from Division. So normally the way that a game goes is we spend some time in the Division first before we jump into the mystery. But I think we're going to go in a little harder today, maybe jump straight into the mystery instead. So what I would like from everyone as I take turns describing the message you received, I'd like to see, I want us to imagine this is like prestige TV. Like we spent way too much on the budget just for the opening sequence for your characters. So if you want to go and tell me what visual, beautiful things we see of your characters, what flashes of their past and possible future do we see? Yeah, so let's start with, we'll go in the same order. So let's start with our Dread Archivist, right?
Yeah, I think that you see essentially this beautiful library, essentially all of these gorgeous books with, bound with the gold lettering and all of these things. And then you can hear like a copier machine going. And essentially it pans across and you see these maps that are laying on the desk and all kinds of like lovely artifacts with little notebooks next to them and things like that. And then it sort of like switches over through this dark thing, through like a dark part of the room, and then you're looking in through an office door, and it's got like the fluorescent light that's sort of like flickering, and there's a dark form there, like someone who's wearing a cowl, but you can see that there's a copier machine going, but it's like glowing with this blue light and everything. And then when Dread Archivist Eliza Corbin turns around, you can see that she's just deathly white vapor inside of this sort of almost like super old-fashioned outfit, like she died 50 years ago, but she's like dressed Victorian. It was just like how her clothing is. And so she turns around and you can see that floating out of the copier machine are all of these magical sigils and symbols. And essentially they just like come out and they're in this soul stuff that's just kind of floating into the air, and then they sort of slowly fall back down onto the column on the counter in a stack. So
Perfect. And I think from the copier, we see like page after page, it's like the words don't quite come together. You can sense that someone or something is trying to reach you from far away. And slowly, it's like when you try to read in a dream and the words don't come quite together, but eventually the words do start to make sense as each paper comes out. And what you're able to read is Omen class monsters. Several personnel, agents, and monsters have been reported missing, changed, or terminated. Black alert protocols activated. Do not approach the oldest house. It does not exist. Its lies are ancient, and it is inescapable. It is hungry and cannot be sated. And so you're about to see the next message when we cut to are hungry. What a coincidence. I wrote this before making the hungry playbook. I'm very amused at myself. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, so I feel like Nero's section of the overly budgeted introduction sequence is like him maybe like kind of slightly in focus in these very like decadent glamorous scenes. Maybe he's draped over some couch or something at one point, kind of just these flashes of like glamour, and in the background almost played out with like shadow puppets or something are allusions to all of these terrible things he's done in the past, the various victims and other things that he's consumed along his way. So this big contrast between shiny, glamorous, and arrogant, confident, and then bad things happening in the shadows.
Ooh, I like that. I have to ask. So Nero, once you feed on someone, right? If you feed too much on a victim, what does it look like? What's left of them?
I think that not much is left, right? So anytime Nero is feeding on something, these shades end up escaping into this world, right? But if he goes too far and kind of consumes everything, I think it's like that person becomes, or creature, whatever, becomes like that fleeting half memory of a dream you just had, but you've woken up and you're not quite sure what happened.
Oh, I like that so much. Yeah, and I think there's a moment when we see like one of those people that you've like fed on too much in the past, this troublesome shade appears next to you and whispers, Nero, the oldest house is looking for you. And before you can say anything, they almost dissipate, and whatever it is that drives your hunger holds it in place and starts to speak through this pitiful shade and says, the oldest cat has come to me in my dreams and purred against what's left of my heart, but I can't remember what the oldest house wants me to do. I need to disappear. I need to become undone. There are no more tears left to cry. And I think we're going to cut to our falling character, what do we see?
Yeah, I think we see kind of like if we're the the opening splash intro on like Prestige TV, we see like an old like a purple rolling sky with weird clouds going across it, and all of a sudden the clouds take almost the shape of an eye, and as the eye like dissolves, we see these streaks of light start falling down towards Earth, and we zoom in on one of those, and is the first kind of shot we get of Finn. It's fairly early in human history or modern human history, and so we see a quick series of flashes as of Finn in a lot of different positions and types of dress, oftentimes near sources of power. And it oftentimes seems like these are moments in history that precede tragedy, but there's a consistent sense of Finn protecting very small groups of people within the history of those tragedies, with words more so than anything else, like whispers, in close-up whispers and earlobes, council meetings, other stuff like that take place before we see, I think, a somewhat awkwardly but very formally dressed individual playing just like video games in an arcade, near division headquarters, and like doesn't really seem to understand, like is making a lot of motion, but it doesn't really seem connected to what's happening on the screen at all. It's like they've seen this to be a thing that it seems like humans really enjoy this. I should go do this. And really, I just like the noises and the lights. Like, I love being in the arcade just because it's bright and shiny. So there's none of the sense of the type of power and manipulation of the past. There's just this moment of like unbridled delight at all the beeping lights and sounds. And they are utterly enraptured by what's happening in front of them on the screen, even though they don't get it at all.
And what's the video game that's on the box?
That's great. It's T Warrior, and you got to collect all the 7 ancient brews of wisdom in order to defeat the ultimate darkness.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, and so what happens to Finn is all these like different lights and sounds that you were drawn to, they're always like, there is this harmony and the chaos and this discordantness, right? But after a while, you start to notice that each of the arcade boxes turn off one by one, right? Moving closer and closer to you. And so the only one that's left on is the one in front of you. And all the other humans here have suddenly stopped moving, right? And they're frozen. And all at once, all of them turn to face you. And you, my dear, can tell when something or someone is possessed. It's something that you've seen over the many years. And the words that move through them move through one mouth at a time, but you can tell it's one entity, one mind that is controlling all of these people. And they say, I need to become changed and unchanged, body and unbody. Please don't open the door. Don't open the door. I don't want it to open, but there is no other way. And then all of the bodies drop down into the ground, and there's a sound of a snapping finger, and all 3 of you are in front of the oldest house. So the 3 of you, according to the records of division, know that the oldest house has been around since forever. It has been around before the universe began, even. And so the oldest house is a singular place. It has taken on many forms over the millennia, both horrifying and comforting. It has its own sentience, desire, and agenda. The 3 of you have heard of this. And Eliza, I'd say that you've read the accounts of those who have survived and not survived the oldest house. You know that the oldest house calls out to humans and monsters alike, and they come into whatever the house will take on as a form, right? Sometimes it's a hotel, sometimes it's a quaint cottage. In the past, it was an old castle. But now what in front of you is what looks like a government building, brutalist as fuck architecture, right? And so like the shapes are sharp and rigid. So Nero, you have had to help division agents who have had to like keep eyes on the records of the oldest house, because everyone knows that the oldest house can become more powerful if there isn't someone to watch the evidence that division has about the oldest house. But it has a tendency to twist the people who do so. So division has asked you to like feed on those particular dreams and memories to keep the agents mostly able to keep doing their jobs. It doesn't always work out well, but you do your best, right? And you get fed on the side. It's quite nice.
It's a good deal.
It's a good deal. So before this moment, the oldest house was nowhere near division, right? You knew that it was on the other side of the world, but in recent years, it's been moving closer and closer to your particular branch of division. But it wasn't, this is something that's normal for the oldest house. It does call upon people, it feeds upon them, and then it leaves, right? And usually whatever it leaves behind is something that the harbingers might try to fight over. It's some form of power, person, or item that's usually left behind. But so far, division has just been keeping track of this, right? It hasn't escalated to a point where they needed to send in a team, as far as you know. But Finn, you're very suspicious about this. You've been working with division for a long time, probably longer than these other two. And you know that division wouldn't leave alone the oldest house. And so you suspect that division has been sending in teams, and you're not sure if you haven't been told or if it's something division is not aware that it's done because of the way the oldest house tends to rewrite reality and memories a little bit.
Okay.
So the three of you are in front of the oldest house. When you look down on the back of your hands, there is a black pyramid that looks like you think it's a tattoo for a moment, but it's shifting and it's moving underneath the skin, right? And you notice that when you look away from the tattoo at the corner of your eye, the pyramid rotates a little bit before it stops when you look at it again. And so in front of the oldest house is the oldest cat. So it patiently waits at the glass doors. They are a sphinx cat, their hairless skin a curious shade of lavender, and they watch you with large eyes of amber. If you look a little closer, you realize that it's not really purple skin they have. It's all these like ancient texts and spells that are tattooed onto the sphinx's skin, giving it that color. So I want to ask Nero, the oldest cat once came into your dreams to save your life. How did they help you?
Ooh. I think very much against Nero's will. It's probably hurt his pride a lot. Someone coming into his dreams to help him out. But I almost wonder if some sort of nightmare analog, like from a different plane of reality, like a parallel realm or something, right? So not connected to Nero, not connected to this ancient primordial dream deity, but something from somewhere else, but behaved like dreams, maybe found in Nero and wanted, almost to consume him as he would other dreams and nightmares on his own. So I think Nero was quite wounded pride, but accepted the oldest cat's assistance, because otherwise I don't know if he would have won that one, or it would have been like mutually assured destruction, which he would have counted as a loss, because then he's not around anymore to do nasty things.
It's true. So the oldest cat sensed your pride being wounded. And we flash back to the moment, and the oldest cat looks at you and says, normally I would erase one's memories of such an encounter with me, but I feel you and I could be very good friends, and your pride needs a little help, don't you think?
Oh, in this flashback moment, I don't know if Nero deigned that with a response. I think he's still has just enough of his faculties about him to be petty and just sort of.
Are we going to pick up a darkness token for that?
Oh yeah, if we can pick up darkness tokens in a flashback, then sure.
Of course, we can pick them up.
But
yeah,
I think kind of sticking his nose up at the oldest cat here, like not.
Mm-hmm.
He's just composed enough to, not super piss off this clearly powerful, the trans-dimensional being, thing, cat, whatever it is, but he's not happy about it. Come on, this is embarrassing.
Right. And so we give into pettiness. So Josh and I were talking about darkness tokens because in Apocalypse Keys, instead of rolling with stats, you roll with darkness tokens. And these can be acquired by doing certain things that are open to your interpretation in your playbook. So Josh, could you read out the ways that the hungry can earn darkness tokens for me, please?
Sure. So I gain 2 to 4 tokens when I feel a yearning for what I cannot have. React with pettiness, as seen here. Ask someone to feed me a part of themselves. Ask someone to give into their hunger, or embody a condition that affects me.
Right. So we have no conditions marked yet. But yeah, so how petty are we feeling? Like, and because you get to pick up 2 to 4.
Yeah, I think this is like a 2 darkness token level of petty. Again, he recognizes enough that I wouldn't be here without this weird cat, and if this cat is strong enough to barge into my dreams, who knows what it's going to get up to. But again, he's not happy about it. This is kind of humiliating. So
right, perfect. So go ahead and pick up your 2 darkness tokens. And I think when you see the oldest cat and that memory comes flooding in, you see the oldest cat's eyes widen and they say, it's good to see you, my dear friend. Have you managed to survive your nightmares without me this whole time?
Throw some salt in that wound. I think, if this were a comic or manga or whatever, the sound effect would be like the TSK, because it's kind of like, not even, I can't deal with this cat. Not again.
And the cat is suddenly like next to you, like rubbing up against your leg. But Eliza, how do your ghost cats react to the oldest cat, this strange being?
Yeah, I think it's that awesome way that cats always react to a new cat, right? Which is that they kind of put their ears back and they kind of go forward to see if, who's the boss, and and work out that pecking order, except that there's quite the swarm of them, yeah. And I think there's that thing where she's watching it, and I have a start a session move. That's the devil's advocate.
That is
so
correct.
Yeah. So I think that essentially I should probably make a roll and see how that goes, to see what I recall my mentor shrine.
Yeah, I'll let you power game for a little bit. Do you want to tell me if you had an opportunity to gain darkness tokens? Because the oldest cat paid so much attention to Nero and completely ignored you.
Exactly. And I have all of the cats, and cats are my thing. Yeah, I think
so you do have you have a way of gaining darkness tokens that is feeling ignored or unimportant.
Yes.
Usually that's a really hot combo with the Fallen. I'm going to say that right now. So we're probably going to see that later.
Yeah, that's okay, good.
Especially with our the bond, the way we have it set up is going to be great.
Exactly. So I guess I have to ask, Eliza, how ignored or unimportant do you feel between 2 to 4?
I would say 3, because dang it, this is supposed to be my thing. Yeah.
You were the Dread Archivist. So.
Exactly. I know things.
Yeah.
I know about the past.
Exactly. So go ahead and take 3 tokens, and then we can resolve your Devil's Advocate move.
Sure. So this is roll and spend. So I'll roll and I'll spend 2. So, and then good to roll. So I got a 7. a little low.
Oh, right. All right. So, my friends, the way that Apocalypse Keys works is usually most PPTA games, you want to roll as high as possible. But in Apocalypse Keys, we're trying to hit the sweet spot of 8 to 10. Because if you hit higher than that, you have gone too far with your monstrous abilities, right? But in that way, then a 7 or lower is a miss, in fact. So
why is 7 a miss?
Sheri does this all the time. Every time you play Apocalypse. I want
I
to say,
shake my fist.
when I played Apocalypse Keys, I could never, I hardly ever got a perfect hit. It was so hard. I was like suffering under my own design. Okay, so, but Eliza, you do have bonds, right? So if you spend your bonds after a roll, it'll give you a +1 or a -1 per bond you spend, right? So because it's your relationships that help you like control and refine your powers. So you have like 3 different bonds, right?
Yeah, and I have 2 of them with Nero, who's just like, pretending like he's the most important person here. So I think that I'll spend 1 of them just to kind of step up and make myself
right. So is there
less
something that
ignorable.
Nero did in the past that helped you stand out more?
That has helped me stand up more. He's a little scared of me, I know. Is one of the things, and I have been able to scare him off when he's intimidating other people on occasion, and then that puts me up higher in the picking order among the other investigators. There are a whole bunch of people that Nero is,
Perfect.
Nero's not their favorite person.
All right. So we spent the bond, which means that you have hit an 8 to 10 instead. Yes. Right. So I forgot to read out the devil's advocate. So you have a mentor, someone ancient and terrifying who wears human skin. They tell you what you need to know as long as you prove you're worth their care and interest. So this is basically a flashback with your mentor. You flash back to a moment when your mentor was pleased with you on an 8 to 10. Their sinister riddles make sense of what is going on in the present. So useful in a house that makes no sense in the division right now. So which 2 options do you want to choose?
I think that they taught me to recognize undercover division agents. So I could name an NPC who is such an agent that's here and gain a bond with them. So does that sound like an okay thing?
Oh, are we saying the oldest cat is an agent of division?
Oh, I like that. Or at least he was. So
even better. I like that. So I will say that that there is always the oldest house and there is always the oldest cat, right? And this has always been the case. But you also know that every once in a while, the oldest cat does something, they wouldn't call it dying. That's much too blasé. But they do have to pause for a little bit and a new cat becomes the oldest cat.
They hold a vote, yes.
Mm-hmm. And all the previous cats have to hold a vote, yes. Mm-hmm. And so you know that the division has one of those votes available to them. And that's why this current oldest cat is secretly an agent for division.
Oh, excellent.
So there's a moment when like, I was going to say that. See, I'm going to say like the oldest cat like gives you a wink. But we flash back to your mentor who we've like described in the past. I'm going to look at the picture of the NPC you pulled up. Wow, for some reason, I read the description. I didn't look at the picture and they look really much cooler than I thought. Okay, so we see like coming from the shadows, this like huge skull and these antlers, and riding in the antlers are these candles that are lit. And your mentor says, "Dread archivist, Eliza Corbin, you know better than anyone that an agent for division is a prisoner held by their chains. But you, Eliza, you're different. You can see those chains. You only have to know how to pull at them. Do you understand me, my dear?"
And I think he is pleased with her. So it was one of her moments where she actually made the chains like make a clinking sound. Like she understood it's the harbinger and the essentially that balance between life and death and right and wrong. And all these ideas that you have about how the world works that are incorrect and correct at the same time.
And so that's when your mentor like is suddenly like right next to you. And we know that your mentor is like technically imprisoned by division. They were an agent that almost became a harbinger, right? And so your mentor is right next to you. And they're called Shrine, by the way. And Shrine says, I'll tell you a secret, dear Eliza. The oldest cat has a heart in someone else's keeping. You find that heart, my dear, their chains will belong to you forever. So go ahead and take that bond. What second option do you want to choose?
Ooh, let's see here. I think the other thing is that the cool patterns of the apocalypse. So we don't. I don't know that we have the facets.
We do
in front of us. Where are those?
I will put you in front of the mystery map now. So
okay.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about facets as you talk about that? Because that's something that's a little
weird. Exactly. Okay, so I forgot to mention though that Apocalypse Keys is mainly inspired by mystery systems like we see in Brindlewood Bay, The Between. Very, very good stuff. And so a little thing that I added is called facets. These are things to keep in mind in the mystery, and later when you've collected enough keys to connect to the facets, it helps form a theory, right? So facets are basically just things to keep in mind for the mystery you're investigating, like important aspects for you to keep track of. So the facets that we have here in the oldest house, which you see on your mystery map, is missing memories, time restarting, the harbinger, the door of power, and division's connection with the oldest house. So we have some playbooks, mainly the Shade and the Found, that already start with abilities that manipulate or engage with the facets in some way. So you have chosen that you're going to rewrite or add one of the facets. Is that right?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that he says, because he's been around forever, he's ancient magus, essentially, who like has just picked new bodies as he needed to. And then after he was with the agency, he got super powerful, became almost a harbinger, doesn't need the body anymore, is perfectly fine. Without that, he creates a self from like the shrines that he makes to death. And that's why he's called Shrine for the most part. So that's how he always appears. But he sort of gave up the living. And so I think that essentially what it is he has taught me the cruel patterns of the apocalypse. And one of the things that he said is the agency only can defeat the apocalypse by understanding the reason that humanity exists. And he says, and he had actually said to her, take for instance shelter. It's only there to keep space from the darkness, space from danger. All shelter is a liminal space between what is desired and what is unknown. And so she's thinking that as she's looking at this oldest house, and it's this FBI agency and this sort of thing like that. And I think that it goes, it doesn't say division's connection to the oldest house.
Right. Do you want to rewrite that?
Yeah. And I say, why has the oldest house joined the investigation?
The investigation of humanity, right?
Mm-hmm. Or essentially of the apocalypse versus survival.
Nice. Why has the oldest house joined the investigation? I am taking note of that here, and I'm going to attempt to cross out the other one as soon as I remember how to draw a line. Correct. Okay. But yeah, very cool. That is so awesome. Yeah, I will probably fix that later. Excellent. So all of this like comes clear to you, right? When you come back to this moment and we go back to the oldest cat winking at you, and it's sort of like, I see you, I understand you, right? So you know that part of the reason why the three of you have been brought here is this must be part of the investigation in some way. This must be the oldest house reaching out in some fashion. But so at this point, the oldest cat jumps away from Nero and moves towards the glass doors and beckons you all to come in closer. And let's see, as you move through parts of the oldest house, it's all like dark corridors, dark wood paneling, and there are all these, it's a very narrow corridor, right? The three of you can barely fit like side by side, and the oldest cat is in front of you, and the oldest cat warns you to not lose track of them, right? You always have to keep an eye on the oldest cat. And the oldest cat says, I apologize, my dears. Normally I would be a better host, but the oldest house doesn't quite listen to me nowadays. There is a disconnect of some kind. And so as they say that, you notice like these huge paintings along the side, they take up like most of the wall, right? It's uncomfortable how huge these paintings are. And each of them have different figures, but they're all covering their faces, or they're all turned away from you. So Finn, how do you recognize that as you go down this corridor, that each of these paintings are actually the other tiers?
I think there is somewhat of a familial look, specifically around the eyes, and there's as you get near each of the paintings, you can actually, like, if you didn't know that they were their names, you wouldn't know that they were their names, but you can hear the faint impression of like a child wailing as they are born, right? You can hear the faint impression of the thunderous sound of an avalanche as it moves towards a village. Like you can hear all the different sounds like faintly as you come near them. And then they're all drawn with something of a cracked line like along their jaw that's kind of the not like it's not always there, but when we get stressed or are exerting our powers, like it's like our forms will oftentimes crack to reveal a little bit of what's inside and let sound and light out. And that sign in paintings is oftentimes used as a reference point for that.
Perfect. And under each of these huge paintings, there's like what's supposed to be a nameplate, except it's blank. But when you move close to it, when your hand brushes against it, that's when you can hear the sound of each person, right, of each tier, as you said. So we hear the thunderous sound, we hear the wailing, right, as you move deeper and deeper into the oldest house. Do you tell everybody else that you recognize the paintings, or do you keep this?
No, I do not. I do look to note whether or not we threw out some rough numbers, but I do look to note if there are 26 or 23 paintings. Like, is these our family portraits as they were, or are these our family portraits as they've become, as some of my siblings have merged with each other?
Ah, yes, exactly. And so you notice like some of the paintings have actually, like, there's a space where there used to be someone there, but like the painting has been cut out and it's just a frame that's left behind. And in some of the other paintings, you can see like what was just one person. When you look at it, it's two people. When you look away for a moment, the other person comes closer. When you look away for another moment, they're closer until they merge into one person. And you realize the paintings are responding to you in your memories.
And then the only other question is there a painting of me in this hallway?
So of course, when you get to the end of the hallway, you can sense that the painting of you is waiting, right? But Nero's walking ahead of you. Nero, how does the painting react to you coming close?
I almost think like, so I don't think that Nero quite picks up on the same name sound that Finn is getting. I think because it's a bit more of a distant kinship here. But it maybe almost like the painting like just not shakes, but like goes a little crooked or something, like right as Nero passes in front of it, maybe makes like a slight noise as it's rubbing up against the wood paneling of the wall or something. Like maybe just enough to briefly draw his attention to it. Because I think he just like looked at some of the paintings and was like, all right, cool paintings. It's like this kept moving on down this weird spooky house with this cat.
This cat who just keeps like looking at you with this really smug expression that only
This
cats
is
are
the
capable of.
smuggest cat that Nero's ever met.
Yeah, plus the Sphinx, you can extra see all those extra lines of smugness.
You can just tell it's radiating off.
Exactly. So when that painting shifts and moves, Finn, there is a moment when you see yourself. How does the painting try but fail to capture you at the height of your glory?
I think it tries to capture a moment where I convinced a regiment of soldiers to go the wrong way in a battle. Like I was, and it is a moment where I was dressed and presented myself very humbly before them, but it shows me in this kind of regal presentation commanding them down the wrong fork of a road, as opposed to the reality of the situation, which was I'd kind of cloaked myself in humility for that moment in order to deceive them. And it was a moment I was tremendously proud of how little notice they took of me as I gave them the wrong directions. It was the smallest change possible to divert the course of an entire war and save an entire valley of people. But this has presented me as if it was a full exhortation of my strongest abilities.
I like that. Very, very good. And so,
however, I have to straighten this painting. Like, there is absolutely no way that I can leave my painting crooked.
Absolutely. I'll say that you notice that when you change the painting, all the other paintings become crooked.
That's fine.
That's fine. As long as you're the one
that's actually
yeah,
mildly ideal.
Yeah. I feel like we're kind of leaning into feeling others are beneath you in order to gain a darkness token.
And that's fine. Yeah, I'll take 2.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a huge one, but I'll absolutely gain 2 darkness tokens.
Perfect. All right. So as the 3 of you follow the oldest cat, you are brought into a room full of outdated computers, right? So maybe not so outdated, because Eliza was talking about copiers earlier in Division, but these are like huge old computers, right? Huge CRT monitors. The screens are mostly black with just green text. Like, this is before Windows was a thing, right? Before graphical interfaces. So it's all just like green text across the screens, and the monitors flicker on and off, and the keyboards are typing themselves, right? And so you see like different words come up. Eliza, one of the computers is typing exactly what you're thinking. So what are your thoughts that are typed out on the screen?
I said, oh, I love those keyboards. It's like my first reaction to them.
I'm not gonna lie.
Comforting.
Yes.
They're all slightly yellowed and everything.
Exactly.
Not exactly white, right?
Exactly. I think she has a great love for all machines and instruments of lore keeping. throughout the ages. And yeah, these are like beautiful collector's pieces as far as she's concerned. So I do think that she swooped over to the machines to take a look at them. So
Right. And so the one that you're looking at, you realize like it's typing out, oh, this is such a beautiful machine. Where did this computer come from? Where can I get one for the archives? Right.
Exactly.
Perfect. And then that's when you notice that one of the printers nearby starts printing. It's like an old dot matrix printer, right? It starts coming out. And
So
look at Sheri's face.
So graceful.
A different time.
This was tech that meant something.
And so it starts printing out something, and you notice there's also a fax machine nearby, and they're both printing at the same time, which shouldn't be the case because fax machines and like these old dot matrices were different speeds. And what you see on the papers is, help us, you almost made it last time. Please don't give up. Just one more chance through time. And that's when the oldest cat turns to look at you and says, this is probably the time when I should say, this isn't our first time. My memories are a little hazy, my dears, but I believe this is probably our 12th attempt at taking back the oldest house. But I believe in lucky number 13. I'm sure we're going to get it with number 13. Call it a cat's intuition.
I'll rip off the fax page, fold it up. Yeah, put it in my sleeve.
And so when that happens, several of the computers like start to turn off and turn on again, and the black text and the black screen now has red text across it that says, no, the apocalypse on our terms. Division will belong to us now. Go no further. Division is ours. And each of the computers start to turn off, and the oldest cat whispers in the dark, I think we're running out of time, my dears. What do you do?
It's time for a break.
Excellent. We take a 5-minute break? Is everybody cool with that?
Yeah,
and we'll come back and be monsters and fuck things up maybe for the better. Good. We'll see.
We're gonna take a short little 5-minute break. We will be back in just one moment to keep on playing Apocalypse Keys. And we are live again here on Plus One EXP, straightening photos, picking up faxes, and trying to figure out what's wrong with the oldest house. Looks like we moved around a little bit while we were off. I'm going to put us back in the right positions while I hand things over to Rae to take us back into the oldest house.
Yeah, actually, we were in the middle of seeing what Eliza is going to do. So you can tell that there are entities, people, personnel that are reaching out to you from within the oldest house, asking for your help. All of you know that you have attempted this 12 times before, but can't remember anything, right? This is your 13th attempt to retake the oldest house, basically. And, but you also know that whatever entities or single entity, we don't know yet, is behind this is threatening you as well. So, so what do you do, Eliza?
Oh, I think I have like this move that's exactly for this.
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
I can pretend that I was trying to aim for that. Totally.
Yeah, exactly. And you would be, usually you do have to help me through that way because I'm like all excited. So I think that I have a move that is called Death Walk here. And they reach all places into the hearts of the things. So when I'm trying to reconstruct events or learn something valuable in an area, I can spend darkness tokens and roll. So I have one. I'm going to go ahead and do this. And essentially, hopefully it will assist me in some ways. I'm all for it. So let's see here. Roll this thing. One token. Sorry, getting used to the interface. I apologize.
Oh yeah, sure. No problem.
Okay, and roll. I don't know. Perfect. What did I get? A 6.
Sorry, Charlie.
Okay, so can you
so that is
spend
a miss.
2 different? Yeah, it's a miss. Can I spend 2 bonds?
You can if you want. You have 2 bonds left. Am I right?
I have lots of bonds left.
You do. So
I have the oldest. Yeah, so I'm going to spend my bond with my darkness, what the darkness demands of me. Yeah, I know. So that bond is that it's all starting to seem the same, life, death. I can't tell the difference anymore sometimes. And then also with the oldest cat, because he is going to help me be fast enough to do this thing. And essentially, I think that essentially what this looks like is when she steps into the next room and the monitors there start going with the red text, she reaches over to one of the machines that hasn't gone red yet and pulls like, they weren't really network cables so much as like what LAN cable, like a phone cable out of it, because all of the stuff that they had on the machines was on the machine hard drives or something. So she's going to pull that. And essentially this Death walked in life. So when I try to do this, Death can show me exactly what's happened here. And then I will hopefully use, but this gives me 2 and 8. So that's good, right? So that means that Death will answer 2 questions. So what glimpse beyond these events can you show me, I think?
So let me describe first what exactly happened here, and then you get to ask questions.
Okay, and remember that Death, what Death looks like for me. So
right, did we establish what Death looks like for you, or
yeah, it always takes over someone else in the scene and talks to me.
Yeah, so. Definitely. So I think like in this moment, time freezes, right? As soon as you like pull out those cables, and then all of the text all over the computers go like restart, Death walks here, Death walks here, Death walks here. And so like everything stops for a moment. And Nero turns to you very slowly. You can always tell when Death is wearing Nero, because Nero's suddenly no longer walking the way that he usually does or moving the way he usually does. And there's a moment when like Death touches their own face, which is Nero's face. And Death says, I don't know what you see in this nightmare, in this little dream. Why won't you just give him to me?
And she sort of says, I really only like him when you're talking through him.
You say that, dread archivist Eliza Corbin. And Nero's hand, which is not Nero, places a hand on your shoulder. But we both know that you're lying. When are you going to tell him how you feel?
Because I never have to.
Well, who am I to tell you? Dear dread archivist Eliza Corbin, what secrets die or do not die with you? And so Nero moves through the scene and touches each of the computers and tells you, the oldest cat tells the truth. You have been here 12 other times, but what the oldest cat does not know, that only death knows, is that each version of you that has tried still exists within the oldest house. You will have to feed them to Nero if you're going to win this, my dear. He is very hungry, but we'll see what he leaves behind. If he doesn't do this, I can't protect you.
All right, 12 of me, but I don't have to watch, right? Excellent. So,
Well, and then so that's when each of the monitors turn on, and for a moment it's just text, right? That's trying to show you the images, so it's a little hard to tell what you're seeing. And you realize that you failed all the previous times because each time you've tried, the previous versions of you and Nero and Finn become corrupted by the oldest house and move to stop you, right? So it gets harder and harder each time. You get closer and closer to the truth, but each version of you becomes more and more powerful, right? And so, but yeah.
all right here.
So you want to ask, what glimpse beyond these events can you show me? Is the first question.
Yes.
And so that's when Nero suddenly stops moving, and it's Finn who turns to look at you. And so death like stretches with Finn's body. Shattered divinity, so good to wear sometimes. I do love me a fallen kind of god once in a while. And death moves closer and says, there's another one like Finn trapped in the oldest house. If you find the oldest witch and free her of the oldest house's dream, the oldest witch will make a great ally.
Okay. You can use allies.
You can, in fact. Though the last time you tried, they did die horrible deaths, but this
Not
time will
before
be
they were
different.
useful. Yeah. So,
That's true, my dear. You're starting to sound a little like your old mentor.
I am chastened. She sort of stops.
What's your second question?
Let's see here. I think I'm going to just say, what evidence here will help my investigation?
Ooh, yeah. So I'm going to say that this is a clear line to help you towards grasping a key, right?
Yes.
So you see that one of the paintings that you passed by earlier, like you notice that the person who was in it is not there anymore. Like it's just, someone just painted a background, which you know is not possible, right? And Finn comes in close and says, find the runaway.
All right. And she says, thank you, Dad.
You're welcome, my dear. Now remember your promise to me.
She kind of looks down and she goes, are you really sure you want to do that?
Well, I'm very excited to see what happens when death dies, aren't you?
Not at all.
Well, you've only been wearing death for 50 years, my dear. So it's all still very new and shiny to you.
It's very shiny. Yes, that's exactly the word I would use. You should go now.
And Finn stops but not before death picks up Nero again for a moment. And Nero reaches down and picks up the oldest cat and starts like scratching the oldest cat just underneath the chin. And the oldest cat like shows off the face. I don't know why he doesn't like you. You're such a dear little one. And the oldest cat just purrs and purrs. And when Nero wakes up, suddenly the cat is in his arms.
I think I just go to drop the cat. It's like, ugh.
And I sort of turn to Finn and I say, Finn, one of your others is here, is caught. We need to see if we can help them. And she sort of looks at the painting and we need to find the runaway. And then she goes, and Nero, there are 12 other versions of us. You're going to, well, I hope you're very, very hungry.
I always have a great appetite.
Okay, hopefully it's 12 times 3.
Right, so we have our tasks ahead of us. Which one would we like to pursue first?
Ooh, I think the runaway just ran away, so this might be our best chance to get a sense of where the runaway is gone.
Is the runaway one of my siblings? Is this the same?
Just set a picture.
Ooh, yeah. So as you look towards the painting, right, towards that empty painting, these old school projectors start to like fall down from the ceiling. Like these are the ones that should not be able to attach to the ceiling in the first place. Like these are like really old. I really appreciate how Sheri and Tony exactly understand what I mean. When I describe this to younger people, they're like, a projector, like a camera. And I'm like, oh, it's so sad. Anyway, okay. So they get what I mean. And so you see like flickering, like through, there's like something like a shadow that moves between the paintings, and you can tell it is not one of your siblings, right? But it is wearing what the painting in order to disguise itself, right? So I'm going to tick the doomsday clock just to show that time is of the essence. Things are moving forward. Let me just select the clock because I get to move it forward, which is pretty cool. Twink.
Blink.
Okay. Twink. That's the dramatic doomsday ticking sound. Twink. So the projectors all like flicker and move, and you can see like this shadowy shifting thing go up to the painting and then like pull at it before the projectors like go back into the ceiling, right? And you just see what's left, like that empty painting. But you suspect that whatever this is, it's moving from painting to painting inside it, like through the paintings. What do you do?
But we cannot see it actively right now.
Well, not actively.
Like this was in the projector. We saw it moving through the paintings. Correct.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Just want to make sure. I looked down at the runaway's name, which I'm happy to make up a name if you want me to. And I want to create resonance noises for their name in order to see if I can locate where they are at in the house.
Oh, nice. I like that. Right. So what does it look like when this happens?
That's a great question.
Do you reach out or?
Yeah, no, I think I look down, I look down at the nameplate, right? This one is like a comet plummets, a comet screams through the atmosphere, right? And so I think like it starts out as like a low humming, and then becomes a loud rush, and then we see that kind of cracked appearance as the room kind of starts to shake, and all of a sudden it sounds like thousands of jets crescendoing through the atmosphere are trying to move through this space. It's probably not pleasant for either Nero or Eliza, as it becomes apparent why it's not a good idea to say the names of me or my siblings. But this is not the full version of their name. This is like most of it, to see what part of the house responds. So this is basically like trying to create an echo. So the sound kind of coalesces around us. It becomes very heavy. It fills with pressure, and then I kind of release it out through the house. And so we see, this kind of explosion of noise rip down the hallway and through the house.
Ooh, I like that. Right. And so as that sound reaches a crescendo, we can see like each of the paintings start to move, and they're covering their faces and their ears as they like shift away, turn away, because our dear sibling, to say even just a portion of our names, what blasphemy. And I'm going to say, like, you're able to do this. One of your powers of darkness is weapons of light and sound. So this is something you can do easily. It shifts and tears through the house. The house responds, folding and unfolding within itself. You can see through it, right? It's like as if you're moving through the house really quickly. You realize there are dozens of people and monsters that are trapped within the oldest house, right? You recognize some division agents even very quickly before the memory of the division agent is like taken from you. And you get closer and closer to this runaway. You can hear them whispering and calling out something. I think this is a perfect moment to try to grasp a key to see what clue you get about the mystery.
Cool. Let's me scroll down to that.
Yeah, sure. It's one of our basic moves. Yeah.
So whenever we grasp for a key, just for the audience's benefit, let me move this around a little bit so the text is on the screen also too. Whenever we grasp for a key, when you search for a clue, investigate the signs of the apocalypse, or use your powers of darkness to gather information, describe how you are doing so, spend 1 darkness token and roll. Spend darkness tokens. I decide how many. I have 2. We're going to go ahead and spend 2 to try to get us into that that rift of a sweet spot. I don't think I have any other bonuses or penalties, correct?
No. You're good.
And click to roll. I get a 7. On a
wow, the dice are so mean.
yeah, on a 7, you find more than you were ready for. You may choose to mark ruin to uncover a key, but in doing so, the keeper will reveal how you become closer to becoming a harbinger. And that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and mark some ruin.
Nice. So we're going to get that key no matter what. Do you have an idea for what this could be, or I'm happy to supply it?
Let's see. The darkness demands that I either fall in love with somebody or merge with my siblings, right? Giving myself over to oblivion and ending my individualistic state is my major temptation. So I actually think it falls in really well with looking for something that is hovering. But if you have an idea, I think that's just kind of the general framing that I like for it, is like maybe I sense kind of there is a almost like there's a second of like coalescence or harmony as I start to merge with the form of this kind of fake sibling version of myself. And everybody around me sees this happening. I don't know. Does that make?
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
So.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So I'm going to connect it to the key you find, but go ahead and mark ruin, please. Let's see. Yeah. So for people watching, I'm referring to a list of keys and deciding which one to pick out, which feels the most fun. I'm going to say that you find like in the middle of in the heart, right, of the oldest house, there is the boiler's rooms, pipes, and metal give way to ancient stone and tombs. And in the distance, there's a sound of metal clanging on metal and the soft sound of a choir, right? And you can see this thing that's like wearing the skin of your sibling right? The painting is like moving desperately through the catacombs, just water splashing around its feet. And you can tell like it's on the verge of death, right? It's like breathing hard. It comes closer and it comes closer to this choir of voices. And in the center of it, there's like this huge, beautiful coffin made of glass, right? And it starts to open up as it gets closer. And you hear it say, I have what you asked for. I made sure I waited until it got close, until Finn got close. Please, is this enough? Please tell me this is enough. And the choir of voices come together and say, yes, this is more than enough. And a corpse starts to like form like in the middle of this glass coffin. And you can see like invisible hands start to like shift and unwrap this corpse, right? And you can see like it's the face of like one of the first of the tears who was like taken by death. And you can see like this wretched creature like pulls off the painting that it was wearing and starts to feed it into the mouth of this thing. And so the key that you find is a worshipped corpse, right? And you know that it's connected to one of the first of your kind that defied the unification desire, right? And this is what happened to them. They died this horrible death, and now the oldest house has their body.
Okay.
How do we feel about that?
I like it.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna just take notes. I'm just gonna write this down. Okay, text. I'm writing it down in uncovered keys. Corpse of one of its years.
Dan Phipps in the chat also affirms that he's a big fan.
Perfect. All right. Okay, so we have our first key. And at this moment, like Finn, while you're resonating with that sound, it feels like you're almost there. It's like there's a sound echo of you that's like almost walking through the waters that can see this. But then this wretched creature turns to look at you and says, no, don't, not yet. Don't come any. And then suddenly you're like thrown back to where you were with Nero and Eliza.
Did you find him?
Yes.
Where should we go?
Quickly towards the center. There was, and I'll describe the room of pipes and water and the coffin and the chorus, and I have a general idea of where it is at the moment.
None of that makes any sense, so I'll follow you.
Okay.
Because did you see any of us?
Yes.
Good. We need to go by those, and she looks at Nero. It's just, and you should eat them.
Right. Just real simple stuff, of course.
So
I'm sure it's just right down the hall.
Oh yeah, exactly. Finn, you'll be able to lead them there, no problem, right? That won't be an issue. You've moved there very quickly, but you know how to guide everyone through. And the oldest house is responding to you favorably right now.
Okay.
But Nero, do you want to do what Eliza has and like allow you to stalk what you're looking for? Perhaps give in to the hunger.
Yeah, I feel like that being in this sort of place of power, Nero sort of like not a moth drawn to the flame, but like the moth is in the flame kind of deal, right? So it's just like, you wouldn't tell, maybe you could if you've been around him for long enough, but I feel like he's really trying to keep it together because there's just a lot here, not only literal just energy and power, but I think also dreams and ideas and memories. So there's just a lot of tempting snacks all around. So I think that even if Nero is going along with this plan of finding this weird boiler room and glass coffin thing, yeah, et cetera, et cetera. I think he's also quite distracted by his hunger, and also he's been given pretty explicit permission to like go hunting, right? Right. So I think that yes, he's going to be looking for signs of our other selves, past selves, future selves, who knows for sure. Because like,
Mhm.
you know, Nero is fed on a lot of things over the course of his existence, but you know, another fallen divinity, you know, a ghost himself, like it's very tempting.
Yeah, truly, truly, absolutely. So I'm just gonna say real quick, Sheri mentioned in the chat that Nero's following her instructions, so she's gonna pick up darkness tokens for that. How many darkness tokens are you picking up?
It's just 2. It's just general bossiness. So yeah.
Yeah, you're not pushing him too hard. So Nero, are we going to like, I'm just looking at the particular, are we going to give into the gnawing edge of hunger? Is that what we're looking at?
You know what? I think so. Let's do it. So the gnawing edge of hunger, when you surrender to the hunger within you, describe how your body transforms and what you feed on, spend darkness tokens and roll. So I feel like in this moment, you know, Finn is leading us. I feel like Eliza is maybe more closely following Finn, and Nero's kind of bringing up the rear here. And like, if you were watching him, it's like you sort of see the energy almost moving under his skin. I mean, it's uncomfortable. You know, we're stepping into body horror territory. I'm not going to go dwell on it too much, but you know, just this roiling hunger just beneath the surface, right? So I think I am going to spend 2 tokens, because I have 2, and roll. That's a 12. Disastrous success.
I love this so much. Okay, so you do have lots of stuff, but let's see what happens on the 12, because it's also kind of fun.
Right.
So on an 11 plus, your hunger goes deeper, edged with endless teeth as your humanity slips further away. Do you want to choose one of these options, or do you want to spend a bond instead?
So let's see. I can choose between ask the keeper what the harbinger within you screams for, gain a bond with what the darkness demands. If you give into the harbinger, clear a condition. I don't have a condition yet. Give into the worst of your hunger and go too far, inviting chaos and terror. Name a new fear you have and create or replace a hunger condition to reflect this. I think this could be a good time to maybe get into conditions. So I think I'm going to pick the second one.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. So basically, just to explain for people watching, conditions are emotions that affect your PC. Once they are marked, it's up to you how much this condition guides your actions. If you embody a condition, you can also pick up darkness tokens. However, for most characters, for most PCs, there are only 4 conditions you can mark. Once you hit the last one, you hit your breaking point, right? Which is this huge mechanic where the worst of the darkness comes forth, right? But the hungry is a little different in that the hungry only starts with 3 conditions, but can earn quite a few, right? By giving into the hunger, such as through this way, right? So that's what's going to happen. I'm going to describe, let's see. I'm going to describe your victims, my dear, and then you tell me how you go too far, right? So as you're moving through the oldest house, you can see like waiting in the shadows are like these other versions of you from previous attempts, and they've grown twisted by the oldest house. You can tell like underneath the skin. I'm also going to resist the urge to go too much into body horror here. You can see like underneath from the eyes and within the mouth, there's like this ichor, right? This darkness that just bleeds from them that they have difficulty controlling, and they move with monstrous speed and strength. And you can see like they've been tearing through the oldest house, trying to block off like ways for you to gain access to where Finn is going, right? So they're like, you realize like they were about to try to follow the group and attack them when you got to them first, right? So you see like there are about 6 of them right now, 2 of each. You can see that the older versions of you have like extra limbs, extra eyes, right? Are moving like predators through the shadows. You can see like they're moving across the paintings, the dark panel floor, like the swinging office lights. So what does it look like when things go horribly wrong?
So I think that in the act of consuming like my alternate selves, right? I think the element that is going too far here is actually like there's some sort of rule that has been broken, like the act of eating yourself and like your own identity and taking that in. There's just something twisted about it, right? Like it's one thing when it's a different entity, right? But when it's your own self, there's something, you know, sort of like deeply written in like the rules that technically Nero has to operate by and whatnot, as like sort of this dream nightmare, maybe semi-related to divinity. There are these unwritten laws of reality, and like whether the oldest house is sort of twisting the situation to have him break those laws, or there's something else that is kind of maybe influencing the scenario, like having even Nero be here in the first place in order to break that rule. Because I think this isn't like I'm feeding on them and then, you know, they can scamper off or whatever. This is they are being consumed in their entirety.
Excellent. And so you feed on memory and dream, right? Do you want me to tell you what memories and dreams you feed on, or do you want to tell me?
Sure.
So what does it look like though when Nero feeds? Or is it something that happens mysteriously off screen that we're going to see in detail later?
I think you could liken it to Nero like unwinding, you know, as if you were tugging on a thread of like a sweater or like a knit thing, and it just slowly unspools and becomes undone, like all the knots that hold together, you know, that being like the dream and memory that keeps this form coalesced, just siphoned out, and then that being begins to collapse.
Ooh, I like that so much. Yeah, so I think one of the memories that you see with stark clarity, because there's all this chaos and you're feeding quickly on them, but there's this one memory that comes into sharp focus, and you see Eliza in her human form before she died, right? And turning around to her assistant, Vin, and the 2 of them are like just happily categorizing books. They've been at this for hours, right? And Vin jokes about like, with the rate that we're going, you're going to ask us to like put in a Dewey Decimal System. And Eliza says, you mean we haven't already? That's ridiculous. And then the memory suddenly comes undone, right? And you realize like it's attached to all of this pain and trauma from whatever it was that killed Eliza, that she doesn't want to look at too closely. And you see Vin reaching out to her and saying, I'm not worth protecting, Eliza, not after what I've done to you. And the memory fades.
Clearly something that Nero perhaps was not meant to see.
No, terrible. And so, yeah. I'm going to ask, this is a little leading, but do you feel yearning for something here that you cannot have between these 2?
I think so, perhaps. I think that there is some, you know, definitely kind of a strained or tortured, you know, tragic connection between these individuals, right? But that's still a real connection. And I feel like Nero is just not the kind of thing to be able to cultivate those sorts of connections, like whether by choice or even by nature, who knows? He's not telling. But I think there's like a pang of jealousy, regret, something.
Oh, that sounds good. I was gonna say that sounds like picking up 3 darkness tokens almost, but what
Sure.
do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So, but you feed on them like when you sort of wake up from this moment. It just happens within seconds, right? But all around you, there's only these scraps of memories left behind, and you can see the remnants already starting to shift, right? But they're weakened in this weakened state, and they just start crawling away into the darkness. But you've taken care of some of them, and it's what Eliza asked you to do. So,
Right.
yeah, just
Right.
doing your job.
So I still get to name a new fear I have, and then also create a new hunger condition. And I think the new fear is, this was very messy and a loss of control, which is not something Nero has not been messy for a very, very long time. So he does not like that, and sort of losing control of what the house, or at least what he's blaming the house, brought out in him. So what would be a good hunger condition?
Yeah, something about that loss of control.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some examples, raging. So.
Yeah. So, because right now you have raging, lonely, and lustful,
Mm-hmm.
and so
I think what would be like a good one word for loss of
yeah,
control?
I know we can put
I'm putting loss of control down. For
There you
now.
go. There you go.
Sloppy.
Yeah.
Sloppy.
Yeah, sloppy.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But yeah, excellent. Okay, so now we have a new hunger condition for you, right? Perfect. Okay.
And just by creating it, do I need to tick it off, or is it now just an option for me to take? Right?
Yeah, it's not an option for you to take. It's like if I'm going to talk in, it's like new HP slots, right? So right, you only need to mark it when you need to. So yeah, and if you can get all 3 done, that means you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hunger conditions instead of everyone's usual 4, right? But yeah, okay. So with that, I think, Nero, it takes you a while to catch up with the others, but you find Finn and Eliza like at that glass coffin, right? So the 2 of you have been here. You can see the remnants of the ritual, the ceremony that was in place. Finn, what is it? What artifact do you recognize here that you thought was lost to you and your kind forever, right?
Oh, what artifact do I?
If I ask a question that's too much, you can throw it back to one of us.
That's great.
Fine.
I love that. I mean, I think each of us has an item that is like ours, that represents like who we were. These kind of weird puzzle pieces. And some of them have gotten lost over time. For this one, I like the idea of it is it's a small piece of what looks like space rock. Like it would not do anything, but if it is like, and it looks like it's just naturally formed, but if you kind of get in close, it's very obviously a manufactured item. Like it is not, it doesn't have the same type of pitting, and it is not an actual like space material. It's not even clear what it is made out of, but it's shaped like just a small piece of meteorite.
Yeah, I like that. And so as you see it, as you look at it, it's strange that this was left behind. You can sense the divinity that's still coming off of it, right? It's very valuable, but that strange black ichor like starts seeping from inside the rock, right? And you see it start to crack open, and you can see like little legs, black legs coming out of the rock. What do you do?
I pull out a
I love Sheri's face.
I pull out
Sorry,
a handkerchief and chief and whip it up like try to wipe it up, like grab it real quick in that, like just like
amazing.
make a little
Amazing.
like baggie out of it where it's kind of like squirming around inside.
Yeah, and you can see the moment that you capture it, like it goes still for a moment before it starts, like, when you get a cat into a bag, like it starts violently reacting. Sheri really knows what I'm talking about. Like it's really tearing at the cloth. And I think this is exactly when Nero walks back in. So Nero, you see Finn holding up this thing. The ichor is starting to leak through the cloth. You can see like it tears through one of it as the legs come out.
So what you got there?
I'm not quite sure. An old family heirloom, but also not quite. Hold on, and I'm just gonna like sing it a gentle lullaby and see if I can get it to go to sleep.
That is so
or
cute.
calm down whatever this thing is.
Right. So I think there's a moment where it's still scrambling, but as you do that, everyone else can hear you singing, but there is a frequency that only you and this thing can hear, right? As you do this, and so slowly, the leg little insect bits start to retract. The ichor that was dripping through the cloth now seeps in until the cloth is pristine. And then like it just goes into this soft rumbling, like as if it's moving through the wind, right? Like it's snoring, this little baby.
Without looking at you, I just hand it over to Eliza and say, for the archives, with just expectation that you'll take this like ichor soaked handkerchief for me.
And she does. I think she sort of, how do you say, forms some sort of soul stuff, like it makes like a kind of envelope around it. Yeah. And then she seals it.
All Finn knows is when he doesn't want to hold anything more, he just hands it to Eliza. Like, and
when he's done chewing his gum. Yeah.
100%.
For the archives.
For the archives. If I say that,
you.
Chewed gum.
I was going to ask us, do you feel that Eliza is beneath you because she has to?
Eliza is beneath me. Like I don't feel that way. Like it's a thing.
How many darkness tokens do you want to pick up for this?
I took 3.
I also think I would like a couple.
Yeah.
Which one?
For being ignored or
unimportant.
Yeah, unimportant. Yeah.
See, this is why I feel like pro tip, powerful combination is the Fallen.
We're power game speed running the oldest house right now.
Perfect. Okay, so
I mean, we got a key. We may as well try unlocking Doomstore, right?
Yeah.
We could roll really well.
To fight a -5. Okay, so right. So I guess for people listening, when you attempt to unlock the Doomstore, which is to explain what's happening, you roll plus all the keys you've taken, but minus the complexity of the mystery. So we are currently at a complexity 6, which means we are rolling at a -6. But yeah, anyway, we'll get into that when it's time. Unless people really want to try for it, we'll see. But yeah, okay. So that you're here. There was a ritual that took place of some kind. That this was left behind. It's been affected and changed by the ritual in some way, but the body is gone. You can see traces of the painting like floating in the water that's still here. You can see like parts of the glass coffin are cracked, right? And the more that you study this, the more you feel like the oldest house is just breathing around you. Like you can see the walls shifting and moving, right? So what do we do? Do we want to investigate further? Do we want to poke at the thing that's not sleeping?
I think she sort of stops and she's like, so Finn, what is this thing, or what was it?
We're not exactly sure what they do, but each of us landed with one. Each one can do different things, but it was Akhemet's symbol. It was their point of power that they could give those who helped them to signify their name and their authority. Sometimes they would get lost, but I've never seen this happen to one of them before.
And she sort of stamps and says, so the thing inside of it was not divine.
It doesn't seem so. The putrescence that was coming out of it isn't normal.
Putrescence is such a good word. That is so amazing. You can.
She stops and appreciates the word, even though he's an arrogant person. Yes, putrescence. All right. She put that on the label. Pull it back out. Label it. Put it back in her sleeve. She keeps all of her soul envelopes. So I think she stops and says, so do you think that one of your siblings was here?
I think all of us have been here at some point in time. But I don't know that this was one of my siblings precisely. More something that took advantage of the memory of us in this space.
Ooh. Are they using the vessel of their sibling?
Precisely.
That's not good. All right. So if we see them, and she'll turn, can Nero eat it?
Say one more time, Sheri.
So if we see your sibling or the vessel of your sibling, is it okay if Nero eats it?
I suppose so.
You might be a little bit overfull, but
I mean, there's better things to do with this small spark of divinity in it, but I mean, a meal is, I guess, as good as anything else.
if it keeps us alive, it's a very good meal. So have we seen everything here?
Yeah. What are we thinking?
So you've got the crystal coffin in the inside. Whatever was inside it is gone.
Would you like to investigate it? Grasping keys, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Who would like to investigate and make the roll?
If Eliza has an idea, go for it. Otherwise, I think I've got an idea.
I think you can go for it. Because...
Okay. So to investigate this area, I want to try and get a glimpse into like this room's dream. You know, every room in the house is a piece of the house itself, and the house is alive, and everything's alive has dreams and memories. So I want to see if I can peer in to maybe see what was in this coffin, or what was this ritual? Where did this putrescent goop come from? You know, just see what we could see about this room.
Perfect. I love that so much. All right. So how many darkness tokens are you going to spend?
I'm going to spend 2, because I have 3. That's a 9.
Ooh.
Sweet spot.
Finally, we've hit it. Perfect. Okay, so On an 8 to 10, you uncover a key. The keeper will tell you what it is. I'm going to look at my handy dandy list of keys. Ooh. So one day I will learn how to look at the keys without making ooh noises, but that's not today. So you peer into the dream. Tell me what it looks like.
So I think like, I feel like Nero has like a habit of sort of producing things like out of a pocket or whatever. And I feel like he has like a pack of cigarettes, he lights one and then just blows this like cloud of smoke that starts to kind of like coil up towards the ceiling of this thing. But in that almost little like kind of cloud that it's starting to become, I think he focuses on that and is able to maybe glimpse some flashes or whatever, almost like this smoke cloud has become a sort of like reflecting pool for dream.
Perfect. So what you see is as the room starts to dream, the room remembers what it was before it was the catacombs, before it was the space of ritual. This room used to belong to Division. And this room is dreaming of what it was when it was a secret underground facility. And so you can see there are several like vats, right? And you can see figures floating in each one. And you can see like there are 2 Division personnel that are in front of it and say, the creature is showing signs of potential of becoming Omen class, but we're not quite there yet. How much more will we feed it? And the other personnel says, we still have a few harbingers, former harbingers that may be of assistance to us. Feed the subject, one harbinger at a time. Let's see how much more power Nero can take before he breaks.
Mm-hmm.
So the clue that you get is a part of the oldest house used to be an underground facility for experiments on potential Omen class monsters.
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel about that? Yeah.
I like that. Sort of, and the idea is that it's this particular room that had that dream, had that memory. So maybe in some way, whatever was in that glass coffin or the ritual is perhaps related to this experimentation that was done.
Yeah. Okay. I will put in more details later, but I wrote down that key now. But yeah, and so you can see like as the room dreams it, parts of the catacomb start to change. It starts to want to become what it was before. And you realize that the dream and the memory is leaking out. I'm going to ask, Nero, can Eliza and Finn see what you see?
I think maybe a little, but it's like much more abstracted or garbled. I think it's because of Nero's connection to dream that he can like from his perspective, it's like watching a movie or something, right? Or like the audience perspective when we're seeing through Nero's eyes. But I think there's some level of interpretation and translation, transcription to, because dreams are so layered and non-linear and looping and referential. So if you're not either connected to dream in some way, so maybe Finn can see this, who knows, or maybe you have studied and spent enough time and honed your skill at this. So I think in some way maybe it's up to them if they can read it, if you think you have the skills or the connection.
Yeah, I like that. And so Finn, you notice out of the corner of your eye, how can you tell when one of you is coming close?
I think if we are not being intentional about it, like I think, and I think I kind of alluded to it earlier, like there's this kind of harmonic resonance, but it's very hard for us to hold human shape, or it's not hard, but like it takes attention and effort for us to be in human shape. And whenever we are near each other, like the conflicting frequencies actually like disrupt that, and make it as if it's very basic. Like it just looks like this person is getting kind of wavy all of a sudden, like an actual sound wave is like traveling along a tuning fork, but our fleshes will start to like mildly quiver. And if we are if we get too close to each other without being aware of it, like it'll actually start to cause our flesh to kind of like pull back and those cracks to come out. But it is notable. Like these like the frequencies of each other interacting is a notable thing.
Right. And so sure enough, that's exactly what starts to happen. You can see your flesh starting to ripple. You can feel the resonance, the discordance, like starting to come through. And what both you and Nero realize is as this room gave into its memory, into its dream, the rest of the oldest house began to dream. And things are shifting and moving. And you can sense your siblings are being called into the oldest house and being pulled in no matter where they are in the world, right? But it's very violent in so doing. And you know that if too many of you are in the same place, especially a place as fucked up as the oldest house, it's not a good idea. So I'm going to tick the doomsday clock again, and we're moving forward. This is the most aggressive I've ever been. The doomsday clock. But yeah, so we are two ticks out of 6.
And I do like the idea that like Finn has a general sense of what's happening, but on a more intuitive, like I can't see what you're seeing, but there's almost a vague transmission of the actual knowledge of it without any of the, like, it's just like, I know that this is showing you that it was an old division thing, and that you're in there, but I don't know any of the fine details of it.
Excellent. Right. And so as the dream that the oldest house is having becomes bigger and bigger and starts pulling things into it, I think that's when the 3 of you suddenly drop through the water and find the 3 of you find yourselves drowning in these dark waters, being pulled deeper into the oldest house. And that's where we're going to end our session today on this particular note.
Love it. Awesome.
So I think we have enough time to go over our end of session stuff, to see if anyone hit their impulses. I usually will go over the XP and the rest of things, but I just like to look at the impulse today, because that's a fun one. So Eliza, what was your impulse that you chose earlier?
Fine question. I think it was something about
Let's see.
Logic puzzles. Go too far.
Did you go too far in search of the truth? What do you think?
I was pretty adamant that that Nero just eat all of the other versions of us and not like ask questions or anything like that.
That is correct. Would you want to mark XP or ruin for that?
I want XP.
Yeah,
Yes.
nom XP.
No,
Go for
no.
it. Okay. Yeah, and how about for Nero? I think we probably got yours.
Yeah, so I had surrender to the hunger within me at the worst possible moment. Certainly surrender to the hunger, whether it was the worst possible moment, perhaps, but I mean,
Yeah,
it wasn't a great moment.
I
It
think
was sloppy.
I think given the outcome of that, it was the
Yeah.
worst moment in this session. Like, for
Yeah.
Mhm.
True
Right.
enough. All right, so go. Do you
Mhm.
want XP or ruin for that?
You know what? I think I will, just to be different, mark ruin.
Ooh.
and just
like
so
that.
people get a sense of that, why is that an important choice, Ray, within Apocalypse Keys?
Right. So basically, when you choose to mark ruin in this case, it means you want to come closer to becoming a harbinger. So you only need 8 XP. I'm sorry, you need 8 XP in order to gain a new playbook move or division move, but you only need 5 ruin. 5 marks of ruin in order to gain a new ruin move. And so with each ruin advance, you get closer and closer until you run out of ruin advances and you become a harbinger, basically.
Okay.
Right. So when that happens, your character transitions into an NPC, and the keeper gets to describe in the future how your harbinger tries to draw in the apocalypse. So it's a lot of fun. But yeah, so Apocalypse Keys is a game of you decide how close you come to that end or not, and how valiantly you fight against it or bring it closer. Yeah, so with Josh making that choice, it was like, ooh, we want to become a harbinger is the connotation, basically. But yeah.
Cool.
All right. But thanks for asking, Tony. That was perfect. So how about for Finn's impulse?
So I said, did you tell the truth when you shouldn't have? I think the only thing I could have theoretically withheld that I did not is that my siblings were here, but Eliza already knew that. So I'm going to go ahead and say I don't think I did tell the truth at any point in time where there were essential stakes to shift that. Unless anybody else can think of one, but I can't off the top of my head. Which is okay.
Ooh. Yeah, actually, if we want, I mean, I'm such a power gamer. If we want, I think maybe even you telling Eliza that the artifacts exist and what they are.
That actually is probably true.
Right, like if your siblings
and giving
knew.
her a sample,
Yeah.
That's true, and I gave her
gave
one
a
of
little
them.
too much, yeah. So
That's true. Yeah, that's always the interesting thing about some of these questions is it's like I do love. It's really funny. I was talking about him for one of my designs. Like somebody was like, I don't like the question thing. I was like, I do, because at the end of the day, it's whether the player says yes or not. But you can kick it out to the table and talk about it openly, because the GM may know something that you don't. Like other players may notice something you don't. And I think they make great just kind of end of game ritual, but also like reflective things about the experience of play. So I do like that.
Yeah.
Do I want to tick up Ruin or do I want to tick up XP? Because I already have one Ruin.
We have a 50% off sale for this particular test. So for this particular play session. So it'll only take you, I think like 3 Ruin to like gain a Ruin move. And it'll only take you 4 to get XP to get, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't take a Ruin move at the start. I took a division move. So I'll go ahead and take another Ruin so we can
play with that. Nice.
Oh, all of my coworkers are going harbinger on me.
Well, I also feel like with the stakes at the end of like all of my siblings are going to start pouring in and we're getting closer, that feels
It does
imminent
feel
also
apocalyptic.
too.
Yeah. Okay.
True enough. Excellent. Yeah, but also that's a good point about the end of session stuff. Like when I first experienced it in Blades in the Dark, I liked how it could provide new nuance, right, to something that wasn't apparent at the time, right? Just like what we did now. So that's one of the reasons I like it. Yeah. So normally we would go over the other XP stuff. I think we'll do it like off stream. Yeah, I think that's it for today's session of Apocalypse Keys.
And Keegan appreciates this. And I don't know if Keegan was here for all the Corinthian vibes that Nero was throwing out, though. If they missed it, they'll have to go back and watch it over on YouTube. We are going to be doing every Saturday at 9 p.m. for the next 2 weeks also. So it'll be at least a 3-part series. If we need a little bit extra time, we may pop it out to 4 weeks. But just keep an eye. Saturday nights in September. Also September 11th, which is a Sunday in the morning in the U.S. at 9 a.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Philippines time. We are going to have Rae on with Keegan for a character study where they'll walk through creating characters for Apocalypse Keys. We're very, very excited to work with Rae this month and the folks over at Evil Hat to do all this. And I'm very glad to have Josh and Sheri back on with us. We've got some other great stuff going on tomorrow. If the idea of making characters in a system sounds good to you, tomorrow at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, 3 p.m. in the afternoon, sometime in the afternoon. Keep an eye on Twitter for it. I'm going to make 3 GURPS characters. I'm going to speed run 3 GURPS characters in 1 hour with Keegan. We may only get through 2 with Keegan and Sarah. We're going to work through how you make a GURPS character, which is the only hard part about playing GURPS, in all honesty. You may not like the system, that's totally fine, but character creation is vast and crazy in GURPS, and we're gonna run through some characters. Then on Monday, which is Labor Day here in the US, we're gonna celebrate blue collar realities by playing Dead Belt, which is a 2-player RPG that a couple of Drakes have coming out on Monday over on Kickstarter with Sean, and then Navi's going to join us afterwards for an interview. So keep an eye out all Labor Day weekend for all those great streams. We'll have some other amazing things coming up over the course of the next couple weeks, including this actual play. And we'll see y'all next Saturday, if not before. Thanks, everybody. Bye.